The U.S. Coast Guard has a new policy directed at cruise ships carrying sick crew and passengers. I guess the long and short of it is if you've got sickies on board, stay away from the U.S. coastline. You're not welcome here because, look, you're not American cruise ships. Time to go home and get some help. But fortunately, before that, a good ending to the story of the MS Zaandam, the MS Rotterdam. They will be allowed to disembark their passengers. They're in Broward County, Florida. They're at Fort Lauderdale. In today's episode of the Lido Loca Cruise Show, let's talk about that new Coast Guard policy and tell you what's finally happening with those two Holland America Line ships. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lido Loca Cruise Show. I'm your host who cuts his own hair, or at least here in the isolation. If you enjoy staying up to date, if you like that cruising content, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. And I know the haircut looks ridiculous, so you might as well hit the like button. How about that? Thank you so much. Well, here we go. I didn't know what was going to happen with the Holland America Line ships. The Coast Guard announcement came out a couple days ago on the heels of the governor of Florida, of the mayor of Fort Lauderdale saying, no, we don't want these people to dock. Then there was a very public statement by the President of the United States saying people are dying on these cruise ships. We need to let them dock. There was a meeting on Tuesday night of the city council down there in Broward, meeting of the county commissioners. No decision was made. There was an appeal to humanity by the president of Holland America Line. And then finally it all came together. It all relented right as these two cruise ships have made their way right to Fort Lauderdale. Currently, they are just outside the port of Fort Lauderdale, and an agreement has been made that will allow those cruise ships to disembark passengers. Nearly 1,200 guests are on board that are considered well. And the way they're considered well is there are CDC safe travel guidelines, and there are at least 1,200 people who are considered well to travel on these CDC guidelines. So these passengers will be allowed to disembark from the Zaandam, from the Rotterdam, and they will be, if they're a foreign national, they will be taken to chartered planes. They'll be taken back to their country. If they are domestic, they will be allowed to go to the airport and get on an airplane and go back home. If they live here in Florida, they will be able to go to their cars and they will be able to drive home. These are people who have been determined by CDC guidelines to be healthy. Now, we've seen people leave cruise ships healthy and turn up sick. So hopefully the people quickly get the word, even though they've been on a cruise ship for a month, that everybody's self-isolating. So hopefully these people don't interact with anybody else and they just go home and self-isolate and ride it out and see if these people that have no symptoms, you know the deal. It could be bad. There are some that are considered critically ill. They will be removed and taken to a hospital. This has already been prearranged. Permission from the hospital granted. The cruise line working through, making sure that those arrangements were able to be made. And then there's about 45 people that are sick, but not sick enough to go to the hospital, that will ride this out on the cruise ship. But the majority of the people that have been on this close to month-long journey will be able to exit the cruise ship. They're going to take them off in a super protective way, providing protective gear, putting them in already pre-sanitized vans, and taking them to their next destination. The cruise line submitted a plan. The plan was approved by the command there in Broward County, and so they're following the plan, and all this has been agreed upon. Now, the majority of the passengers, not American passengers, that's been a point of contention with people. 311 American passengers exiting these cruise ships, 52 of them Florida residents. At the end of the day, I do believe this was a determining factor. The fact that you had Americans on board, the fact that you had Floridians on board, I think this is one of the contributing things that allowed these cruise ships to disembark their passengers. So at least there's some sort of resolution for the folks that are on these two cruise ships. It's a contentious debate. It's a debate that really brings about the concept of who we should help, why we should help them. And as we see this crisis go further and further on, we do see some policy changes that are going to make a difference when it comes to how the United States deals with cruise ships, and new regulations from the Coast Guard potentially presenting new challenges to the cruise lines. In the past, the Coast Guard worked very closely with cruise lines, especially in medical emergencies, providing medevac services from ship to shore. Well, now in the middle of the crisis, that relationship is changing. The U.S. Coast Guard putting out new regulations and telling cruise ships that have sick passengers or crew on board to understand that, at least from the United States perspective, they will have to keep those sick passengers and crew indefinitely at sea. Or you can go back to your home country and get help there. So much of what's going on right now with cruising in the face of this crisis has been a re-examining of how cruise lines do business. We've talked about it on the channel before about flags of convenience, how the cruise lines will register their cruise ships at another country so that they can take advantage of different labor laws, so that they cannot be under United States regulations. And that's worked to their benefit in the past. It's been a way that they could be profitable. And yes, so flags of convenience. And then also most major cruise lines not even incorporated in the United States. They do that because wherever you're incorporated, well, you get to use those tax benefits. And so there are countries out there that make it advantageous for companies to incorporate, and they pay less taxes than they do in the United States. So now people are starting to raise their hand and say, well, okay, now you need some help. You should have played the game in the United States. It sounds a little salty, right? But that's really the way that this conversation's been going. If you've tracked it at all over the last few weeks, everybody is getting super in tune about how cruise ships do business. They're like, oh wait, they don't fly the American flag. They don't even incorporate in the United States. They incorporate in foreign countries so that they can pay less taxes, so that they don't have to follow all the rules in the United States. And yeah, so during that conversation about the bailout, when people say the cruise lines, because they're not really American companies, they're not going to be able to benefit, I heard a lot of people going, yeah, that's right. If you're not American, you don't get the American help. And now we see it in the Coast Guard, this new policy, like, look, you're not an American ship, you're a Panamanian ship. You got sick people? Take them to Panama. That's the new approach. It's very interesting to me to see this new rise of nationalism, patriotism in this crisis. It's interesting to me that this virus is not really a respecter of borders. They don't like roll up on the U.S. and go, oh, we can't go in there. They're just looking for human host. There's two schools of thought on this. There are people saying, hey, look, we can't help everybody, so you got to choose who you're going to help, and we might as well choose it along national borders. And let's at the same time, let's take a close look. Oh, yeah, you don't want to pay U.S. taxes? Well, you're not part of the gang. You're not part of the crew. I know we used to help you out. I know we benefit from all the money you bring into our cruise ports, but on this one, we'll just have to take a pass. Hard decisions, hard time, tough love. Yeah, if you're out there with sick people, maybe you go to the Bahamas where you decided to do business and see if they can help you out. Like we do so many times, let's make it about nationalism. Let's make it about patriotism. I'm sure I'll catch some guff on it, but I do look at nationalism that way. I'm super excited that I was born in the United States, but I didn't have a choice in it. Just like the person who wasn't born in the United States, they didn't have a choice in that either. And at the end of the day, there are people that are struggling with this regardless of nationality. Man, I hope we don't lose our compassion in this. In my opinion, the core identity of the American philosophy is that this is a country of diversity where we help out people who are in need. But I guess in the crisis time, maybe it doesn't stretch that far. And yeah, look, I'm just a commentator. I'm locked down in my home. I'm doing everything that I can not to get sick. And so, yeah, it's easy for me to stand on platitudes and say that we should be more compassionate, that we should be more human. These decisions are going to be made either way, whether I'm on the front line, not on the front line. And so my only appeal is just let's not lose our humanity in this. And maybe the best that we can do is hunker down, call ourselves Americans, and just say, well, let the chips fall where they may. I personally think we're better than that. That part of being an American is not turning our back on people in need. But yeah, that's just what I'm thinking today here on the Lido Loca Cruise Show. What are you guys thinking? Please leave a comment below, hit that like button, and we'll talk about it some more tomorrow. My name's Tony, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.